Hey everybody, welcome to Manga Mondays, the only manga review show that I'm doing right now. And today I'm going to be talking about a pretty great manga, in my opinion. It's called Fire Force. This is the new series by Atsushi Okubo, who previously did Soul Eater. Soul Eater was, for a considerable amount of time, one of my favorite manga series of all time. And I only say for a considerable amount of time because I caught up to the series when it had about 16 volumes out, which would be, I don't know, 2010 or so. And I was following it monthly for a little while, but the thing about Soul Eater is that it had just completed the big Arachnophobia arc, which was fucking awesome. Everything up through that is really great, and the Arachnophobia arc is super fucking cool. And then after that, it kind of felt like it was going in a weird direction, and over time I mostly heard people saying that the later arcs were just not that good. This was about the same exact time that Soul Eater Not started, and I had read the first chapter of that and didn't really care for it, didn't care for the anime adaptation either, so I just kind of felt like my reputation with Soul Eater was kind of souring, and I would wait till it was over. And of course it is over now, but I still haven't gone and caught up on it, and I've sat there looking at all the volumes in Barnes & Noble, all 25, and going, I should just buy this whole series. And I've had that moment several times. I should just buy this whole series. But I can't bring myself because I was like, what if it's just going to be a huge letdown? Or what if it's not as good as I remember, even in the part that I did love? And I gotta say, when Fire Force came out, I kept looking at it and thinking, can this possibly be as good as Soul Eater? Because one of the coolest things about Soul Eater is the fact that it has such punk and hip-hop and styled artwork, that it's got this really crazy out there world and aesthetic to it, where every character has their own way that they dress. Like, every character has their own fashion sense. Everything in the story is so unique and distinctive. And with this series, I mean, right off the bat, it's a bunch of firefighters who are all wearing the same uniform, you know? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, this doesn't seem like it plays to Okubo's strengths. A manga about firefighting, which flipping through it, I just was like, I don't know, this doesn't look like an Atsushi Okubo book. So is this, and you know, as far as I know, he's declined as a writer towards the end of Soul Eater and with Soul Eater Not. So I was worried about it, but I finally picked it up, and I was shocked by how much I love this manga. And it's entirely because of how great Atsushi Okubo is as an artist. Because this is kind of deceptive to refer to as a firefighting manga. It's really a shonen action series, a weekly one at that, which is kind of amazing that this late into Okubo's career, he's moving up in speed. I believe Soul Eater was a monthly series, and so was Not. I guess he was doing 2 monthly series at the same time, but now he's doing a weekly one with one of the biggest magazines. I believe I don't remember the name. It's the one that's not Jump. the second most popular, I believe. He names it in the back of the book. Let me see if I can find that. I don't care. So this is an incredible action manga, and what it's really about, and I'm sure that Okubo came up with this concept because he wanted to draw cool fire effects. This book is basically the phrase "fight fire with fire" made into a whole story. The concept of it is that there is this epidemic of spontaneous human combustion going on. And when someone spontaneously combusts, they turn into an infernal, which is like a monster where they sort of lose their consciousness. They have a little hint of their human memory left in them, but they just kind of go on a fiery rampage and just start burning people and things all over the place. And so there's a special fire force, which are the firefighters who wear blue bands around their belts. And they are people who can manipulate fire because they're sort of descended from infernals or something. It's kind of unclear. It seems that like there's like different generations of people related to these monsters who can control fire. So the second gen people of this I don't remember what they call the race of people who can do this, but the second generations, they can manipulate fire, just like they can, you know, whatever fire is already there, they can move it and change it and do all kinds of interesting things with it, which of course because Okubo is a, shonen action writer, he finds ways to give each character really unique ways of using their fire powers, especially as we get into Volume 2, where we have one guy who, fights with guns, but he controls the level of ignition in the gun so that the bullets, like, he can control how hard they are or how hard they hit. Like, so if he wants to just shoot one of his friends, he can, because he can make the bullets softer, or he can control their trajectories. All kinds of cool stuff like that. So different level 2 people might have different kinds of powers. Then there's the level 3 people, such as the main character guy here, who can actually generate fire. And so the main guy, his thing is that he has the devil's footprint, as they call it, where he kind of lights his feet on fire, and it operates kind of like jet boots. He can propulse himself really quickly, and is a great fighter because of it, and he's good with kicks and stuff like that. Whereas there's another third gen here who he's obsessed with the concept of himself as a knight, and therefore he uses a plasma sword that he's generating. And that's another thing. Each character's power is tied kind of into their personality. The main character guy's thing is that he wants to be a hero, and therefore he has a flying kick like Kamen Rider because that's the kind of hero he wants to be, whereas this guy wants to be a knight and ergo uses a sword. So, what this really is a shonen action series just with a pretty unique premise, that it's about people spontaneously combusting, and about how scary it is to die in fire. Which, this manga has some scary moments, and it has it has a dark tinge to it in that it's a world where people are dying in fiery infernos on a fairly regular basis. The main character is he's got this devil power, he's stronger than most, and therefore people kind of fear him, and additionally that's also because he has a weird condition, not yet explained, but I suspect it may be eventually, where when he's nervous, he breaks out a really devilish grin. He's always smiling madly. Let me see if I can find a good picture instead of just trying to simulate it myself. When he feels nervous, see, we're first introduced to it because he knocks a girl over, and then he can't help but have this sick smile, but it's not intentional. He makes that when he's nervous, and therefore people think he's some kind of monster because in bad situations he's always smiling like a madman, such as the bad situation of when he was a kid, his mom and baby brother died in an inferno in his house, and everyone thinks it was his fault because he had devil powers, and he's too young to completely understand what happened himself, but he knows it wasn't his fault and he wants to get answers, and so that's his main motivation. And he had promised his mom he'd become a hero, so he joined the Fire Force so he could become a hero and find the answers possibly that people in the Fire Force might have, because they're the ones who, showed up on the scene when he was a kid at the time. So now he joins this crew, and that's all fine and good in itself. At first, this seems like it's mostly going to be a shonen story centered on the main character and his journey to get answers, and that's fine enough. It carried me through the first volume because the artwork is so fucking good. And I don't just mean in terms of, like, the actual style. It's really, what this made me appreciate more than anything is just how good Okubo is at flow. Now, I've always thought that Soul Eater had the best fight scenes I've ever seen in manga. The fight scenes that happen during the Arachnophobia arc are fucking amazing because they have a sense of choreography about them. Like, there's a good reason Studio Bones had to be the ones to adapt Soul Eater, because Okubo is as good at drawing fight scenes as fucking they are at animating fight scenes. He has that level of choreography and timing in his panels, and he is ruthlessly good at the page turn. There are so many instances in here where I turn a page and the next thing I see is something really fucking badass, and also of building tension. Here's a small example. So we've got, like, this woman appearing in the midst behind the main character, and then the guy yells, Shinra, at the last second, and you've got that sense, and then, boosh, he gets hit, but he blocks it just in time. I realize it's hard to tell with this shitty camera. That's why I'm not showing too many images from this, but, like, if you read through this, it's really exciting as a page turner. And the chapters are so short because it's a weekly series that I would sit there getting to the end of a chapter while I'm taking a shit and just want to keep reading. I ended up burning through this damn thing way quicker than I would a normal book. I realized the pun only seconds after I said it. So yeah, this is a great, entertaining read, and so much so that I actually went and bought Volume 2 before filming this. I had initially just got this one, and I thought, well, I want to be able to talk about where the story is going and whether I think it holds up, and I already knew Volume 2 was out, and so many of the other manga I've talked about on this show had a new volume come out like immediately after I recorded the episode, meaning that it will have been months ago and probably another volume's out by the time the video actually releases, so we might as well get up to date on Fire Force. And I gotta say, the story gets even more interesting in the second volume, because here we learn that the crew that he's joined, which is like Division 8 of the Fire Force, they're sort of the motley crew, of course. They're the one that's, not fully established. They're pretty new. Their members aren't like bad or anything. I mean, all of them have kind of weird personalities, but they're all really powerful, magic users or whatever. They're good at what they do. It's simply that they're new and not well established, but the reason that they've been put together is because their extremely trustworthy and good-natured captain was assigned to basically become the internal affairs of the Fire Force, because all of the other divisions are all kind of working in their own interest, because some of them, one is owned by like a big business, one is run by the government, one's run by the church, because the church plays a big role in this. Not the Christian church, though it's obviously modeled after it, but they worship the sun god Amaterasu. By the way, this is kind of like a steampunk world. Like, the world itself seems not dissimilar from ours, but the way it's drawn is definitely not, Tokyo. It's some kind of almost steampunky looking place where they all like worship the sun, and I think everything is solar powered. That's the impression I've got. They haven't really gone into depth about it, but if you look at all the machinery, it all seems to be solar powered. So it is taking place in a unique setting, because Okubo is boundlessly imaginative, and he could not just set something in our world. The man is too good for that. So, these different factions that are controlling different parts of the Fire Force all have their own interests, and the ultimate purpose of the Fire Force is that they're supposed to be trying to figure out what is causing people to spontaneously combust, to solve the mystery of the Infernals, and, be able to move on, I guess, with their lives. But the other people are not necessarily sharing information with one another because they have their own things to gain. So this group is trying to bust the other ones. And that's where it really starts to get interesting, because we see not only our team kind of unify in one great purpose, but it becomes an us versus all the rest of the society that we're a part of, because these guys are, of course, the kind-hearted do-gooders while everyone else has their own agenda. And we start meeting the other teams who are just full of assholes. This very quickly starts to resemble Soul Eater as it goes. The attitudes of the characters, the attitudes of the villains. The first, major sort of, I won't say major, the first, big minor villain that we get, is a psycho killer who was formerly a part of the Fire Force, who goes infernal but maintains a consciousness. And this is like, oh shit, this might change the game. And the way he acts is just exactly like the psycho killers from Soul Eater. So Okubo's his style just seeps more and more into it as it goes along, kind of unsurprisingly. But it's really the artwork that makes this shine. The fact that he's so fucking good at drawing action and having panels with punch and having moments where I turn the page and I'm like, fuck yes! I don't even want to spoil some of the best ones from this volume, because there were moments that I legit, had that hair-raising, fist-pumping, yeah, shonen moment, This is what I want from shonen manga. I want it to be badass and to just ooze technical mastery, not simply to regurgitate things I've seen in every other shonen manga. No one could imitate this, because even though the story is not particularly unique, the way it's presented doesn't feel like any other shonen manga other than Soul Eater. Okubo just has that much of a distinctive voice in the way that he writes characters. Now, not all of it is sunshine and rainbows. There are some questionable things, like how the female characters have very little personality and have lots of fan service. There's one girl who shows up towards the end of Volume 1 who's a part of one of the other teams, and her gimmick is that she has, like, some kind of almost curse that she gets into accidental pervert scenarios a lot. Like that lots of accidental gropings happen to her, but like to such a ridiculous extent that it's funny, except that it's also totally out of left field and there's nothing else to her character really. So and she just shows up out of nowhere and just has these jokes. So it's a little weird. The way the manga treats its women, although, I mean, at least one of them is a cool badass chick, but she doesn't really get to do much other than to be a cool badass chick. But, like, I don't know. It's a little odd when you're flipping through what is otherwise a very well-realized action series, and then suddenly it just breaks for a bunch of fan service jokes that feel totally out of left field. I know it will bother some people. I know it won't bother other people. I'm just letting you know it's in there. If you like shonen action and you particularly want to see great fight scenes and great artistry and a unique voice, I definitely recommend Fire Force. If you loved Soul Eater, you will probably enjoy this. It doesn't have quite the same level of Mad Pimp style, but man, the fire effects look fucking great. And he's still doing the thing where elements have faces and where sometimes an explosion turns into a giant skull. If I can find that, I'll show it to you because I fucking love that. Yeah, here we go. Stuff like that. Which I just love. So yeah, check it out. It's good. I like it, and I will definitely be collecting the rest of these as they come out, which should be frequently because, again, it's a weekly series. See you in the next one.